So let me get this straight. I can get a chicken, do all the prep work, buy a rotisserie, or buy one already done for about $2 less? Welcome to part 3, where I'm taking a look at Emeril Lagasse's French door air fryer 360. In this episode, it's all about rotisserie. Actually, we're going to rotisserie 2 different things. So without much further ado, let's get right into the video. It's time to prep our bird. You can see over here that I have a bowl of water full of, well, this is just butcher string, but I like to soak it in water just in case so it doesn't burn. I have my skewers and I also have my seasoning. This chicken is 5.5 pounds and the directions tell us that we can only go as high as 6 pounds. I've already rinsed this out, washed it, and dried it. Let's start prepping the bird. We're going to start by putting a generous coating of this seasoning. I'm going to get the top and then I'm going to flip it and we're going to do the other side as well. But this is just a lemon pepper seasoning, making sure this thing's going to taste awesome. The first thing that we're going to tie off is actually going to be the drumstick. So let me grab one of our strings. So I realistically am just going to tie around one of them first just to get the knot started and get something secured. So I just wrap it around once and then do that again. To get that done, I'm going to bring these over together, both drumsticks, and I'm going to start wrapping this around so that it stays together. I hope you can see that. I'm going to wrap this just a few times to get the shape and to get the drumsticks to stay, and I'll go around both of them, and now I'm going to tie it off. Make it easy. I'm just going to tie it to the string I had from the first drumstick, just so I get a firm tied, and then I'll cut all the excess string off. After we get the drumsticks tied together, I'm going to grab another string. We're going to wrap it right around here. All we're doing is we're just going to get this tightened down just enough so it doesn't fall apart as it's spinning. Now, I don't want to do this overly tight, just so it holds together when it's spinning. I'm going to move to the back, and I like to actually fold the wings under here. It actually helps it hold together and it cooks a little better. So do that on both sides. We grabbed yet another string. We're going to go underneath the wings here, up and around, and just like before, we're going to tie it just so it holds together. Not overly tight, but we also don't want it to fall apart. We're going to do about 2 more string ties. We're going to do one in the middle, loop it around, hold it together, and tighten it. The last one we're going to do is actually the longest one I had. All the other ones were about 2 feet long. This one I did a little over that because I'm actually going to go underneath the other direction, up and over, just to loop all those things together. Tie it here and do another tie. I think my string was too long on that one, but I eventually got it tied. So that's what your tied bird should look like. It's not overly tight, but it's also not loose where it can fall apart. You can take this time now to cut off all the excess strings because you definitely don't want those on there. All my strings have been cut. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this skewer. Now there's not really a pointed end. They're both are blunted. I ended up putting one of these on there and you just twist to turn this to tighten it. So I'm going to put this through. You want to make sure you jab it right in the chicken itself. And it should, of course, come out the other side. I've noticed now that I'm going to have to loosen this to bring it further this way because you want to make sure these parts right here where your hook can grab are exposed outside of the chicken. So what I'm going to do now is I'll tighten this down. This part's important because you want to make sure you get it into the chicken itself so it's holding. See, now I've actually linked into the chicken. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in on the other side as well. So we're going to line this up here again with the chicken, making sure we actually poke it into the chicken itself all the way in. Push this in tight and tighten it down. All right, so I've got the skewer through and I have my probes in. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to even the sides. So I'm going to slide this down so I have equal side or equal showing on each side of the rotisserie spit itself. And then I'll tighten these things down as tight as they can go. Now that we're ready, we've re-washed our hands. You can actually apply some more of the seasoning if you would like, since you notice that a lot of it came off. I'll do this on both sides. Of course, I won't be touching the chicken just to maintain proper food handling. I want to show you this view of the fetch tool. It actually just hooks right onto this side of the spit on either side. So one here and the one on the other side. And you actually just lift this up. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go set up the rotisserie. We're gonna select rotisserie. You can see that it's preset to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We will leave it there, but then of course it says 40 minutes as our time. We're gonna up that to about an hour and 45 minutes just because we wanna make sure it's thoroughly cooked. I typically do about 20 minutes per pound to make sure it's cooked. That being said, I never just go by time and temperature. I always go by an actual temperature measurement. So I'm gonna get the chicken and put it in. So I'm gonna grab my fetching tool. Now I should say that rotisserie does not have a preheat function. So let's go get our bird. All right, so we're gonna stick this in. I'm a little worried it might hit the actual elements. So you slide in the right side and it just falls in. Oop. That was bad. And make sure it goes in the right side in the locking element. Once it gets in there, you actually put it. Whew. All right, this is the third time I've tried it. I've dropped the chicken the last few times because they don't seem to want to lock into place here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna make it lock into place on the right side, and then I'll slide it down on the left side. I'll show you the trouble I was just having. You have this like square shape that has to go into this side of the rotisserie part, and I couldn't get it to go in because the chicken was too heavy and it wouldn't turn the correct direction. Once you get the other side in, this one just slips into place here as well. Now it's ready to actually turn. Now that we finally got it set in place, let's close this and hit the start button. I'm really hoping it does not scrape the bottom of that pan because it does get awfully close. We're about 10 minutes in. I've been watching this thing spin all along the way, and watch something that I notice every time it gets to this part. It seems it turns, and then you see how it just dropped and maybe turned a little faster? That worries me. Let me show you the connection piece. Here's the connection piece. Every time it comes around, watch what happens as it pulls. It looks like it wants to pull it right out of the wall. That is worrisome. On the countdown, we have about 50 minutes left. And so this is realistically the time where the cookbook tells us we're supposed to be done. So what I'm gonna do as it spins around the very next time, I'm gonna open up the doors, push pause, and get a temperature check. You know what's funny? I just noticed something. When I push pause, it stops it, and it was just spinning around. Right now, watch if I hit start again, it's actually gonna start spinning at the other direction. I didn't even know that was a thing. Very cool. I don't know if you can see that from the dial, but I'm between 113 and 114 degrees Fahrenheit, so we still have a ways to go. The good news is we've reached 165 degrees Fahrenheit or higher in all areas. The funny news is throughout this rotisserie cook, my chicken has slowly slid to the right to now it's here at the complete edge. You can see that this part is completely exposed where it used to be completely in the meat. I must not have locked this one down enough. It just gave it a chance to slide. Let's take this out. I'm going to try to use this fetching tool to the best of my ability. I am locked into the spot, so I'm going to lift up here and just try to wiggle it out. There, it came out. Let's put it on our plate. We are instructed to let it set now for 20 minutes. So during this time, I'm going to cut the strings off, but let me tell you, it looks great and it smells even better. Because of this foil down here, cleanup will be a breeze. Now we will have to take a warm washcloth to wash the sides and the top and the back, but otherwise, that's it. I want to have cook time plus a 20-minute rest time and then 5 minutes to cut it up, and it yields a lot of juicy chicken. So what did you think of that rotisserie chicken? How'd the machine do? What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Now, let's try something else. All right, we've already sent through the rotisserie chicken. Now let's do some beef. This is actually a roast, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna season it with some Montreal steak seasoning. Let's do that right now. We just want to get a generous coating around this. So what we'll do is we'll rotate it, trying to get it on all the sides. We're going to tie off this roast. And of course, I have some of my butcher strings soaking in water. I'm just going to tie it 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to do 1 across the entire way. So let's do that now. Here we have them tied across 3 times. Now let's grab our final string and go the other direction. Just for fun of it, I like to take the string that was there on the top and wrap it around at least 1 time across the new string just to hold it all into place. Now that we have all our strings tied, let's go cut them off. We are now ready for our skewers. The difficult part of this is both ends of this are flat or blunt. And so you got to try to push this through the center of the meat. So that's about the center. So I'm just going to twist and turn and twist and turn and twist and turn, and hopefully I pop out the other end on the center. Now we're going to stick our forks in, making sure to line things up. Push into the meat. Make sure you don't get yourself on the other end if it happens to be a small piece of meat. I like to try to make it look like I have it centered now, and then I tighten this down pretty tight. Finishing it up by putting the other side in. Once you get it all the way in, make sure to tighten this thing down so it does not move. Now we're ready for the rotisserie oven. Let's select the rotisserie function. And so we see it's 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to leave it at that temperature. This says 40 minutes. I might try to go maybe up to 45. I look at about 20 minutes per pound. This is a 2-pound roast, a little over 2 pounds. Of course, we don't cook by time. We cook by the internal temperature, and you can get it between 130 degrees Fahrenheit and 160 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on how well you like your meat cooked. Let's get this in the rotisserie. This is a lot lighter than the chicken that I did earlier, so I can put this into place, set it on the other side, and hit start. We're about 10 minutes into this cook, and the meat appears to be browning quite nicely. I think it's spinning smoothly, at least not as jumpy as it did with the chicken. Things are looking good. We're looking at the thickest part of the meat, and it's climbing up at about the mid 120, 125 degrees Fahrenheit. So you know what? We have about maybe 10 minutes to go, and we'll pull this out. We're at about 2 minutes, 41 seconds left. I did a temperature check, and it looked as though we were between 130 and 160, depending on where we put the temperature probe. Let's take this out, let it rest for 10 minutes, and cut it open. Doesn't that look like a delicious roast? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the strings and pull the probe and the skewer and wash those up, and then in about 8 more minutes, we're gonna cut this up. I swapped out the plate so it looked a little nicer, but you can see we have a little over medium throughout the whole thing, and then a little more well coming down towards the end. So it's really all about how long you cook it, how well it gets done. But I will tell you, I took a little piece and ate it, and it is amazing. In this video, we were taking a look at the rotisserie feature of the Emeril Lagasse French door Airfryer 360. So what did I think of it? First things first, you can only put a 6-pound chicken, and that's the biggest you can do. Mine was almost to that 6-pound mark, and I thought this was actually almost too big. So be careful with the size of the bird that you choose. With the bigger item, it is harder to get that spit lined up and centered into the machine, and I had dropped it a few times. I just had to reach in there and grab it and stick it in. So just so you're aware of that. I was a little nervous that little motor part on the side would fall in and out when the chicken would go up and around. That makes me think that over time, that part is just gonna break. In the end, the chicken was absolutely amazing, cooked to perfection, and I think, well, better than anyone I've ever purchased at a store. In my opinion, the roast did a whole lot better of a job. It was lighter, it spun easier, and it cooked a lot quicker. In the end, that one was delicious too. If you wanted to see the other episodes in this series, I will link a playlist at the end. Anyway, that was my review of the rotisserie feature of the Emeril Lagasse French door Airfryer 360. If this is something that interests you, I will leave a link down in the description. This is Jeff with Jeff Reviews for You. As always, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day. I should say, if you prefer your temperature in Celsius, you just push it once and then hold it down, and it pops it over to Celsius. You do the same thing to bring it back to Fahrenheit. I really do appreciate that you stayed around for my entire review where I used the rotisserie feature on my Emeril Lagasse French door Airfryer 360 as promised. I said I was going to link the playlist to the other videos in this series. I'm going to do that right up here, and I would love it if you would click on this playlist. And when you do, by the magic of the internet, I'm going to join you right over here. So go ahead, click it. It's safe, I promise.